We're going to look at turning a sketch into a CAD model, and this is part one. We're going to create the basic model and we're going to be working in Fusion 360. Now I have here a drawing of the thing I'm going to create. It's a simple outdoor bench. It's a single-seater one, and my sketch has got some rough measurements on it. That's sort of what I thought about at the time, and as we go through we're going to refine that sketch a little bit in terms of the dimensions we're going to be using in order to start being able to create our model. And we're going to be using a technique called Laminated Beams. We can do this in order to make up parts of or pieces of material out of thinner, cheaper sections, or even better, out of recycled timber. So in theory you should be able to make something like this out of a single shipping pallet. So the first thing we're going to be looking at is looking at how I'm going to get my parts out, because I need to know the sizes of my parts. I need to have them ready and waiting so that when I do my design I can maintain those measurements. So I'm going to create this table here. Let's step through it one by one. The first part I'm going to look at is the leg. I'm going to actually have a final part size of 57mm by 57mm. Now in the diagram I had it at 80 by 80, but in hindsight I thought, you know what, I'll cut it down just to make it use slightly less material and make it easier and quicker to build, and it might look a little bit more slender and nicer anyway, so we'll do that as well, and we'll work through that. To actually make that, I'm using 70 by 19 commercially available pine as a test thing, and I'm going to use 3 planks of that to laminate together to make up that 57 by 57 size. So there'll be a bit of wastage there, but I'm sort of okay with that because in the end we'll be making this out of recycled timber. I'm going to need 4 of them, and their length is about 460mm. They're going to be 450 in the end, but I'm going to make them 460mm long to begin with so that I can just make sure that they're going to be just right. So I need 4 of those. So the implications of that is that I'll need to make up about 2000mm of 70mm wide laminated planks, and they'll be 3 planks thick. So that will get what I need for that. Next I'm going to look at the beams going across between each ones of the legs. So I'm going to make them by 80 by 38, and they're going to be a laminate size of 90mm by 19, and they're going to be 2 thick, so 2 planks thick, and which means I'm going to have to also make up 2mm or 2 meters, sorry, of 90mm wide laminate, which is 2 planks wide. The final thing I'm going to do is the slats. The slats aren't going to be laminated at all, and I'm thinking I'll use the 42 by 19s that I've got in stock. Not sure how many I'm going to need though, so I'm going to use the CAD model to figure that out for me. And that's a useful thing you can do with CAD modeling, is you can actually play around with what it's going to look like, and that will be more effective than me just trying to go by the drawing that I've done down below, which I had a lot of trouble getting those lined up nicely. So let's have a look and see how we go with that. 2 things I need to do now is I need to start making up the laminated beams. So I now know roughly what sizes they're going to be. I'll change them possibly a little bit in CAD, but I can make them up already because I'm going to be able to cut them down to size as I needed. And I'm also going to start doing the CAD design, which we will do now. So here I am in Fusion 360, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to basically save this file, and I'm going to save it in a folder which I'm going to call 11pdt. That's the subject I'm doing this for at the moment anyway, and I'm going to call it single seat bench, and I'm going to click on save. Okay, so this is where I'm going to start working, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the create sketch button, and I'm going to create a sketch, and I'm going to create it on the front plane, so you can see that's the front there up in the top corner. I'm going to look at the front plane now, and I'm going to select that. I'm going to create 2 legs on the front plane, so we're going to see, looking at this from the front as if we're looking or approaching the chair from the front, it's going to have 2 legs sitting here and here. You'll see that my zoom is pretty big, so I might zoom out a bit there until I've got about 400 showing on this side. So this will be what I'm going to draw my rectangle. So I'm going to draw it over this side, and I'm going to basically just draw a rectangle out. So we remember that our leg or our table width, so I'm going to click on dimensions, and I'm going to click on the top line of this rectangle, and I'm going to pull out, and I'm going to click again, and I'm going to type that in to be 57, because that is going to be the width of my leg. And the height of my leg, I'm going to click on this one here, I'm going to move away, and I'm going to click here, and I'm going to type in 450, like so, and that will be where my leg is going to go. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do something tricky to get it over the middle. I'm going to use a line tool here, and I'm going to use over here line type construction, and I'm going to draw it. So I'm going to hover over until it puts a little blue box around the center point, and then I'm going to go across to this far line here and find the midpoint of this box. And I believe the midpoint will actually appear when I press and hold that, and I see a little triangle. So that's that one there. And I'm now going to use the horizontal and vertical constraint tool up here, and I'm going to click on that line so that it goes to the horizontal. So I'm now going to use sketch dimensions, and I'm going to click on this line here. Now you remember my chair from the diagram is 450 wide, so I'm going to say 450 divided by 2, so /2, which is going to be 225, and you can type in mathematical formula into this, which is really nice, and that's going to be my first leg. So now that I've finished my first leg sketch, I'm going to hit finish sketch. Some people like to name the sketches. It's probably a good idea. I don't have time in this video to sit down and name them all, so I'm going to now extrude this sketch. It's going to look at the home button here. I'm going to extrude it back this way, and I'm going to extrude it 57, because remember my leg is 57 by 57 in size and 450 long. Because I went to all that effort of spacing it out perfectly away, I can now use the mirror tool. So there's a mirror tool here, and I can mirror not faces but bodies, and the object I'm going to mirror is my leg, and the mirror plane I'm going to hit select is going to be this one here, which is going to show it out to be 225 millimeters on the other side of that plane. So I'm going to press on OK. So now I've got two legs. In order to create the other two legs, it's going to be a little bit tricky, but I can now use the move and copy, and I can select this one and this one, and I'm going to hit create copy. I'm going to do this from the right view, and I'm going to move it. So if I move it out 250 minus 57, so 450 minus 57, that will give me inspect, measure, distance from this point here to this point here of 450 millimeters, which is perfect. So you see I did minus 57 because I wanted it inside that, so that 57 is the length there. So I now have 4 legs, so I created copies of those 4 legs. It's probably a good idea at this point here to go into these bodies and rename them. So I'm going to rename this one here. Always lose where rename is. Actually, no, it's not that. It's a different program. So I just click on it, wait for a bit, and click on it a second time. And this is going to be called leg 1. Click away, click on it, and wait for a bit of time and click on it again. Leg 2, leg 3, leg 4. So now I have those legs. It's now time to start creating the beams. So I'm going to create the 2 beams. I'll actually create the 2 beams. Going back to my PowerPoint presentation here and looking at this one here, I'll be fine. These 2 beams here, which I decided the beam should go on the inside of the leg, not flush with the outside, so that they'll stick out a bit. Not too sure if that's how I'm going to finally do it, but that's what I'm thinking I should try and do. So let's see if we can draw that. So going back to Fusion, what I can do is I can create a sketch on the inside of this one here. Now it's going to line up with this fine, but I can do that. And remember, if I draw a rectangle from the top here, it's going to lock it to the top. and I'm just going to draw out a rough rectangle size, and my size that I decided was going to be that this line length here is going to be 80 millimeters, and this distance from here to here is going to be 38 millimeters. So that's going to be the size of that beam. I'm going to go finish sketch and look at it from the home view. You can see that I've got that rectangle there now. I'm now going to extrude this one here, and I'm going to use this tool up here to change what I'm looking at. I'm going to go from a distance type to a to object and click on that one over there, and it's going to create that there, but the operation is going to be new body, and that will mean that it's going to be a separate or new body, and I'm going to click on OK. So you can see there that I've got that cross beam there. I'm going to right click on that. I'm sorry, not right click, I'm going to click on it twice slowly, and I'm going to call it cross beam. And that cross beam is going to need to be copied, so I can use the mirror tool now. I can click on that object. I can now choose the mirror plane I'm going to go for, and I believe it's that one there, and that will line up perfectly. So I now have my two cross beams. It's now time to do the beam that goes from this side to this side, and it's got a bit of a curve in it, so we may as well draw it as a solid beam first and then cut out what we're going to do, because that's how we make it in real life. So let's draw it as a solid beam. I'm going to draw a sketch. It's going to be flush with this side, so I'm going to create a sketch on this one here, and it's going to go from somewhere on this side, so stuck to this side but not on the top, somewhere on this side from here down to somewhere over here. See, it's not going to lock to that at the moment, so I'm just going to click on here so that it accepts that idea, that thing there. I'm now going to use the project tool, so I'm going to create, and it's down here, project include, project, and I'm going to project onto my sketch this line of this edge of this shape here, so that I can now use it. I can now use the locking tool, coincident, and I can lock that point onto that line somewhere. So now that they go from one to the other. The reason why I didn't go all the way to the top here is because I want a distance here so that my parts can sit in there nicely. So I'm now going to use the dimension tool, and my thickness here, the simple choice here is just to go 19 millimeters, which is the thickness of my timber, 90 millimeters down, and I know that this distance here is going to be 80 millimeters. So that is the part that I'm going to use to create that that curve. Haven't finished yet, so I'm going to hit finish sketch now. Going to go back to the front view or the back view, and I'm going to extrude this, and it's going to come back this way, but it's going to be a distance of minus, because it's got a negative sign in front of it, minus 38, because that's the thickness of it, and it's going to be a new body, and click on OK. Now I'm going to look at it from the back, and I'm going to take that curve out of it. So there's a couple of ways I could do the curve, but I'm going to create a sketch on here. The easy way to do the curve is just, when I'm creating the sketch, is to use an arc, but not using the center point arc. I'm going to use a 3-point arc. So I'm going to create a dot here, I'm going to create a dot here, and my midpoint is going to be somewhere like there. Okay, I can now try and dimension that, and it's just going to give me a radius, but if I go from there to there, it's going to give me something else. So I'm just going to use a radius that looks right. So I'm going to press on here again, click on dimension, and I think that a radius of 682 at the moment. I'll probably go a bigger radius, so let's just go 800, see what that does. No, it's a bit too small. Let's go 1000, and you can see that it's just got a nice slight curve in it. I don't want a too extreme curve, so now I can hit finish sketch. I can now extrude this, and I can extrude it. Let's look at it from a different angle, and look at it from this angle here, Now I'm going to extrude it once again to object, and I'm going to click on this far face, so it's going to extrude all the way through, and click on OK, and it's now cut that out. So I've now got that part happening. I now need to do a mirror and create this part and mirror it on this midpoint here. That's too far. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to hit cancel. So instead I'm going to use a move copy. The mirror doesn't work that way, so I'm going to move it, and I'm going to move it this far, but I'm going to hit cancel. Move it again. You got to hit copy before you start moving it for some strange reason with this app, but anyway. So now that I'm creating the copy, I'm going to move it 450 millimeters, but minus its thickness, which is 38, and that will line it up flush with that one there. So pressing on that and pressing enter, and I've now got that copied across. So now I look at my chair. It's all I need to do is now worry about the slats. Because the slats are going to line up here, I'm going to start by drawing a sketch on this face here, and I'm going to draw, using a line tool, a four-sided shape. The four-sided shape is going to be locked to that part of the arc. It's going to go up here somewhere, making sure that no line is straight, and you might understand why I'm doing this is to make sure that I've got all of these lines. And I'm going to draw a line from here to here just to make sure, because that's what we want. And now I'm going to use the constraints tool, and I'm going to use in particular the perpendicular tool, this one here, to say that this line here and that line there that I just drew are going to be perpendicular, and this line here and this line here are going to be perpendicular. And you need to do 3, you don't need to do 4, because if you do 4 it has to be perpendicular. So now I know that I've got that working. I'm now going to use this particular sort of dimension. I don't want to use that dimension up straight. I want to use it at the same sort of parallel line to that one, and that's going to be 42 millimeters, because that's the size of my slat. This one here, once again, I don't want to go straight out, I want to go at the angle. That's going to be 19 millimeters. And the final thing is I'm going to lock it there and there, that point there and there. So I'm going to use the coincident tool to lock that one to there. So now that I have that sketch there, I'm going to hit finish sketch, and I'm going to extrude that single beam all the way across. And the easy way to do this to get it perfect is to go, instead of distance, we're going to go to object, and we're going to click that face there. We're going to make sure it's a new body. It should be, because it's not really attached. And then we're going to go OK. So now I've got that one slat there. I'm now going to hit, I think it's create, and it's going to be pattern, and it's going to be pattern on a path. Okay, so the path, or the pattern I'm going to use is, or the object I'm going to use is going to be a body. It's going to be this slat here, and this slat here is going to be selected on a path. That would be that path there. And if I drag this out now, you'll see that it looks a bit weird. And what I need to do is I want to change the orientation to path direction. And now I'm going to zoom up and just get this as close as I can to there. Just eyeballing it like that. And now let's come out and increase the number. So at the moment I've got 3. 4 doesn't look good. 5 is looking a bit better, but I need to go 6, or I could go 7. 7's looking quite nice. If I go 8, they're touching, so 7 is the number. So I need 7 of those, and I'm going to click on OK, and then I now have 7 new bodies to look at for my stool. So that's it. That's done. That's the modeling I've done, and I've actually used those slats and created what I think is quite a nice model for me to be going on with and creating more things in order to help me build this